So I am Anna Gliwa. I'm a sophomore at Newark Charter High School.
I'm Maggie Leon. I'm also a sophomore at Newark Charter High School.
I'm Tanya Rowell, and I'm a junior at Newark Charter High School.
Hi, I'm Malia Boone. I'm a program manager for the Youth Mobile Crisis Program at Delaware Guidance Services.
How can you help someone with anxiety as a friend or a family member?
So if a friend or a family member is feeling a lot of anxiety, really you can just help by being there for them. So being a person that they can turn to with concerns or things that they're struggling with, that you're willing to listen to them with compassion, um, being able to talk through any of their worries. And sometimes when people are having anxiety, their thoughts are excessively negative, and and they may be having kind of unhelpful thoughts. So as a friend, you can sometimes talk through some of those unhelpful thoughts that they may be having to actually help them identify them and challenge those thoughts. Like, this might not actually be reality, some of these, worries or concerns that you're having, that it's just your anxiety that's kind of like attacking you right now, and we can work through this together.
How can someone take care of their mental health to avoid progression into a mental illness?
So really, mental health is a part of our whole body health. So when we're thinking about, keeping ourselves well, and that includes mental wellness, we want to make sure that we're doing things regularly to take care of our health. So mental health is also impacted by getting enough sleep, by eating nutritious foods and moving our bodies. Just like taking a walk in nature can be an excellent way to just calm down your central nervous system and keep yourself regulated. So just as a regular way of keeping yourself well, those things are really important, so that, if you were to be experiencing something that's very traumatic or very upsetting or difficult, doing those things regularly actually keeps you more mentally well.
What are good ways to understand someone with the mental illness?
So I think it's really important to remember that mental illness can really happen to anyone. There is a real stigma in our society that affects people with mental illness. So, some people think just because a person has a mental illness, that means they're dangerous in some way, or they're like not normal. And the reality is that that person is really just experiencing an additional struggle that they're working to manage every day. So really similar to if a person had a chronic medical diagnosis, they're potentially taking medication, they may be seeing a professional that's helping them manage those symptoms, but that person is no different than anyone else. So if we have a friend or know someone that's experiencing like active symptoms of their illness, they just really need our compassion and our understanding, and we can support them through that tough time, and then things will get back to where maybe the struggle isn't as intense. So I think that's really important, that we remember that, these aren't things that are someone wants to feel or wants to experience. It's just something that they're managing every day, and they really do need us to understand it better and help them through it if they are having a struggle.
What can you do in a time of crisis or breakdown, whether you or a loved one is experiencing it?
Okay, so especially for young people, I think it's so important to turn to a trusted adult. So if it's your friend or a loved one in a time of crisis, you can be supportive. You can show that person that you care about them and that you're there for them, but also letting them know that you take the crisis they're experiencing seriously and you want to get help for them. So you as the friend or family member are really essential, right, to connecting them with help and supporting them through this crisis. But you don't want to take that all on yourself. Like, shouldering something like someone else's crisis is pretty serious, and sometimes it takes more than one adult to help in those kind of situations as well. So it's really important that we're turning to others to get that help that's needed. And then if you're the person who's in the crisis, You could talk to a parent or guardian, a family member, a coach, a teacher, a counselor. There's other people that you can talk to, like there's crisis hotlines that you can contact. And the crisis text line is something that's really good for young people who prefer texting over maybe talking. So you can text like the DE to 741 741. Or there's a mobile crisis hotline that I work on, which is 1-800-969-HELP. So there's other places that maybe aren't as personal, someone you might not know who might be able to talk to you at the moment the crisis is occurring. But I think the most important thing is to talk to someone and don't keep your struggles a secret. And there really is help out there for you. You don't have to go through that alone.
What are some things that someone can do every day in order to help them feel less anxious?
So I think anxiety is probably on the rise. A lot of people are experiencing anxiety, especially right now. And it's like that, what I talked about earlier in terms of wellness and mental wellness and regulation of our system is there's things we can always be doing to make sure that we are managing our anxiety and feeling less anxious, like, taking walks, like listening to music that we like drinking a warm cup of tea or a hot shower, or things that feel soothing to us and help us stay like kind of regulated. The other thing too is occasionally people can get pretty extreme periods of anxiety that can almost go into panic. And I think that that's important to think about what else might need to happen if it's gotten to that point that it's so escalated. And one of the things I like to do with people that I work with is something called 5-4-3-2-1 grounding technique. So, and it's super simple and you can do it anywhere. And it basically brings you into the moment. So all of those worries and things going on in your head kind of can go away for a minute, and you can just focus on the things around you that are impacting your senses. So you can do some deep breathing, and then you can look for 5 things that you can see, 4 things that you can touch, 3 things that you can hear, 2 things that you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste. And sometimes it's even helpful to say that out loud as you're like becoming aware of those things and noting those things. And it brings you back to a place where you may be a little bit calmer and may be able to manage the anxiety a little bit better. So that's something that I think can be helpful if that anxiety is getting really extreme. But other people like to journal. They like to kind of track where their thoughts are going to see, like, is this getting too bad? Like, what is impacting me when I'm getting anxious? What's happening around me? So those are all some things I think we can do to manage our anxiety.
What do you think are the effects of social media on anxiety or mental health in general?
Well, social media, like there's a lot of research on social media and the way that it has impacted not just young people, but adults, and how it can increase anxiety and depression at times. And really it's because when you use social media, you actually you activate the reward center of your brain. So you get a rush of dopamine when someone likes a photo you post or comments and gives you positive feedback about something that you put out on social media. And so it can almost become addictive, and then you can stay on social media more, and it can become like kind of intrusive even into your life. The other thing is we compare ourselves a lot to people and what they're doing on social media and what they're posting and the pictures of themselves. And almost all social media now has filters, right? So we're not seeing people as they really are. And most people are posting things on social media about the best things that are happening in their lives and not the other things. So we can start to look at those things and compare ourselves and say, well, this person is beautiful, and this person is like going on vacation all the time. And why can't I do that too? And why don't I deserve that? So we start to compare ourselves, and that leads to depression, leads to anxiety. So in general, I think that is what really increases our risk for having some of those things. And we have to be cautious and aware of how social media is impacting us if we're using it a lot. And at least try to reduce it, because I don't think it's that easy to stop when you have that like part of your brain that's like, yeah, let's get on social media and, you know, post something else.
Can someone use social media to their benefit instead of it being a detriment?
Sure. So one of the benefits of social media is that it's a great place to connect with people who have similar interests, right? So like, it's better to connect with people in your personal lives that you can see face to face, that, you know, you feel connected with. Those interactions, those social interactions are just more powerful and better for you in general. But there are opportunities to meet people that you wouldn't have an opportunity to meet otherwise in certain groups and things like that on social media. So you may be really into art, or you may be really into music, or even a group, a band or something like that, and you connect with those people over social media, and you may learn more things. I even know for me, I'm a counselor, and I'm on several different types of social media groups for counselors. I've learned a lot of things actually just being on those groups. So there can be some benefits to being on social media. One challenge for people that maybe are struggling a bit with like having some anxiety from social media, maybe like don't post selfies of yourself, right? Because those are the things that can start to be, you know, where you're really comparing yourself and you're hoping people will give you positive feedback. Maybe you're posting photos of things that are just representative of yourself or expressing something, and they're objects and things like that, but not necessarily of yourself. That could reduce possibly the risk of having like more anxiety or depression. Those are just some things that I think experts are suggesting now for not having, you know, a negative impact from social media.
Talking to an audience that may not be experiencing anxiety, what should they know about it and how it affects their friends or people that they know?
Yeah. So everybody experiences stress, right? Sometimes it's positive even. Sometimes we are stressed because we have a test coming up, or we have a project that has a due date on it, or something that we're working on, and the stress actually inspires us to get it done. So stress can be positive sometimes, and it can also be negative. It could be you had a fight with a friend. It could be, you know, you failed a test. It could be, you know, that there's something coming up that you need to resolve. But with stress, it's usually external. There's a cause to it that is impacting you. So when you resolve that thing, whatever it is, the stress reduces. But anxiety can be similar to stress in a way, because you may still have excessive worries. You may have a sense of dread about something. You may not be able to sleep. Maybe your blood pressure is rising. Stress can do that to you too, but it can be resolved. Where anxiety can stay, it's persistent. It's maybe not even triggered by anything. It can be internal instead of external. So internally, you just have a sense of anxiety often. So that person doesn't want to feel that way, and often is not doing anything to cause it. It's just there with them, like part of what they deal with a lot. So it's important that we know that that's what they're experiencing kind of regularly. And people who feel anxious chronically, sometimes they become a little reactive. They may, you know, flip out or say something, you know, they didn't mean to say, because they're kind of on edge a lot due to their anxiety. So, you know, it could be helpful as a friend to know that they may experience that. So you could have a conversation if you notice it. You know, I noticed that you said something kind of upset me. I'm not sure like if it was because you were just feeling on edge today. And then you guys can have a conversation. Maybe you understand your friend better because you can open up that dialogue about what's going on. But I think in general, like people who are feeling anxious, it can impact them every day. And it's something that they're managing, and hopefully they're doing some of those wellness things to keep it reduced as much as possible. And hopefully maybe talking to a therapist who can help them with strategies that keep the anxiety pretty low, or medication that can also help reduce the intensity of the feeling of anxiety. But that's really important to know that that's something they're dealing with all the time. And being their friend, you're in the perfect position to support them and be there for them if it starts to get worse.
Right. Do you have any other thoughts, questions, or concerns that maybe we should include?
I think maybe the only other thing that we can talk about is that in terms of anxiety and depression, when that feeling, when those symptoms of anxiety and depression get really intense, occasionally people can start to feel like they don't want to live anymore. They might want to die because they don't want to feel that way anymore. And that's really when it gets to the point of a serious crisis. And we want to make sure that we are kind of doing what we talked about before and turning to someone for help for that person, because having that experience that can be really persistent and not feel like there's any relief for a period of time can really start pushing someone to feel really hopeless that it's going to get better. And it can definitely get better, with help. There's many people who live with some of these kinds of symptoms but manage them very well and do have relief from those symptoms. So I think it's important that people know that there is hope if they experience these things and it feels like it's just dragging on and not going away, that it can get better, and that if it gets to a point of a crisis, that they are talking to someone about that and getting some help for that, so that it can get better. If we don't do anything about it, it may not get better, but we know that it can if we're getting the right help for those things.
Great.